Hello, this is Jarrett Struby for EDL 854, Modular 16, Missing Booster Club Funds. This is a case study where we have a situation where we have a student who has received an honor, a national honor, for cheerleading. And the student's parent has requested from the principal PTA funds to fund a out-of-town trip for the student. And the principal has denied those funds on the grounds that those PTA funds should be used for all students or most students as opposed to a single student. And after this event, there is a basketball game where that parent is handling ticket sales, and there is a $50 bill missing that the principal knows should be there because of a conversation with a parent who was attending that event earlier that evening. So that's the situation as it stands currently. So, what do I know? I know that in this particular school that parents regularly volunteer to help principal with ticket sales and other administrative duties because he is the only principal at this school. We know that Mrs. Bowman had requested $798 from the PTA for the cheerleading trip, and that Mr. Stevens, the principal, denied that on the grounds that those funds shouldn't be used for one student and instead should be used for all or most students. We know that there is some discrepancy in ticket sales, most notably that 10 tickets were reported missing or reported torn and unusable, and that equals $50, which a $50 bill is missing that should have been there. And we know that Mrs. Bowman was handling ticket sales. What we don't know is who else was handling ticket sales that night. We don't know what other denominations of currency were in the bag. So if there perhaps were a $100 bill, in which case that $50 bill would have been used as, could have been used as change. So that's just one of many things we don't know. So plan of action. Have to review what other currency is in that bag to make sure that the $50 bill wasn't used for change for an even larger bill. Need to speak to who else was handling ticket sales that night. Need to review any footage from security that could be available. Need to have a meeting with Mrs. Bowman and the PTA president. Any meetings that I would have as principal, I would ensure that there was another staff member, preferably someone part of my building leadership team, present. And I think this would be a good time to review policies and procedures concerning ticket sales in general and torn tickets specifically. So again, review those procedures concerning ticket sales because those seem to that the area of contention in this situation. Ensure that we are using best practices so that there can be no question about whether or not a $50 bill missing is unusual or not. Need to make sure that there is appropriate security at the gate, and I'm not talking just security guards or just security cameras, but making sure that we have enough people there so that no one person is handling everything and so that things remain secure. I think this would be a good time for Mr. Stevens to reaffirm his role with the PTA as an advisory role instead of the go-to person to ask for funds, because that really should be handled by the PTA itself and not the building principal. And as principal, I'd help Mrs. Bowman find another source of funding. If PTA funds can't be used for one student, as they shouldn't be, maybe we can find another way of making sure that this student can go and participate in this parade because the student has earned that achievement. So some things that popped out to me in this situation was I think it's awesome that the community involves and that the parents' involvement. I'm kind of jealous of that, coming from the district I come from, where um, the parents that are involved are really involved, and it's great. But we really need more parent involvement in my district. So reading about a district where you have this much involvement is just amazing. But what stood out to me was there was no mention of really staff involvement. So our staff helping do like extra duty by coming and helping with ticket sales and helping monitor the crowd and all the other stuff that administrators need to have taken care of at a school event. Um, it also stood out, the use of trust versus policy. It's awesome that this principal has this much trust from the parent and the community, and has this much trust in his parents and the community. But I don't think that trust is really a good replacement for the policies. I think they kind of go hand in hand. The policies help ensure trust is maintained, going both ways. That it is possible that this is just a coincidence that this event occurred after having denied the request for funds. There's a little bit more information we need, such as what other currency was in the bag. Was the $50 bill used as change for a larger denomination? And also any other information that would be gained after speaking with Mrs. Bowman and the PTA, and going into a more depth investigation, making sure that funds weren't missing and that everything was accounted for. And if funds were missing, where did they go? Instead of just jumping to the conclusion that because the principal had denied Mrs. Bowman money and money seems to have gone missing, then Miss Bowman took the money. I don't like jumping to conclusions. I like getting as much information as possible, and we just don't have the information at this point. Also, looking at other ways, besides obviously you can't get an assistant principal if it's not in the budget for the school district, but can we have some sort of building leadership team where other staff kind of help the principal with some administrative responsibilities? I know in my building we have several teachers like myself who are going for graduate degrees in administration, and we help out our administrators with administrative duties as part, so that we can gain the experience, and it also helps out with running the building. So maybe Mr. Stevens could look into getting something like that going in his building. So, in our reflection, so how do I, as the school leader, promote effective and efficient management of the school and district? So, I noticed that Mr. Stevens followed established policies and procedures. That as far as ticket sales, there were a lot of good policies and best practices in place, and that safety and academy measures were in place. So Mr. Stevens had someone escort him to the bank with the money. He counted the money in front of another person. He double-checked logs. So there's a lot of good stuff going on there, and it makes for good, effective, and efficient management. But there is room for improvement, but there's always room for improvement. So how is social learning promoted for every student? So maintaining that PTA funds should be used for all students and not just a single student, even though that might seem unfair to that single student. Really, when you look at it in terms that, as Mr. Stevens did, is those funds should be used for all students, which is unfortunate for that one student, but there might be, as I've mentioned previously, there could be other avenues of funding for that student. I think that there's a lot of community involvement and parent involvement, which is awesome in a school. And Mr. Stevens has a good and respected relationship with parents and the community, which is so important for an administrator. So how's academic learning promoted? So making sure that money is used as to benefit as many students as possible is really powerful. It makes sure that all students have equitable opportunities, um, and there's a sense of fairness and equity that the students gain from that. And community and parent involvement is always important for promoting academic success with our students. Where we see that there isn't as much success, we often usually see that there's not as much community and parent involvement. And I think Mr. Stevens has fostered that community and parent involvement in this school, and I think that is nothing but a benefit to his students. And that's all I have today. Thank you very much.